Come with me, YouTube world and YouTube tribe, as we review a land of mystical, ancient karate, some mystical demons, and a whole lot of heap of comedy. If what you think I'm talking about is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, we haven't gotten there yet. But we are talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Let's get into it. So, the synopsis for this movie says, martial arts master Shang-Chi confronts the past he thought he left behind when he's drawn into the web of the mysterious Ten Rings organization. Now, what I like about that synopsis, it gives you a little bit, but not too much. Rare times you see me without my glasses. But yeah, so Shang-Chi, man, whoo, there was a lot of payoffs in this movie. There was a lot of payoffs. We have some incredible Hulk payoffs, some Iron Man 3 payoff, the visuals, the setups, everything was. I love all that, but that set the tone for what I thought about this movie. So the movie starts off with a backstory into Wei Wu, the Mandarin. This is what I was meant by payoffs. This is our payoff of Iron Man 3. We introduced to the real Mandarin. Though I think in the movie he actually rejected that name. Cause it's like a whole dinner scene, and you probably hear me. I'm gonna probably reiterate when I'm talking about in a few. But yeah, it was just to set it up. It was another scene coming down the line that I'm gonna talk about. Like I said, that he talks about the story of the Mandarin, and that's another. When we get to that scene, you get to that in a couple scene after that, we are showing another payoff to that. But so we learned the true story of Wei Wu, aka the real Mandarin, the person that actually wields the actual 10 rings. And as you've seen in the movie, in the trailers, the 10 rings are now actually, they still rings. Technically, they rings, but they rings that actually go around your arm, and your wrist and arm instead of your actual fingers. So they change. That's what the MCU does with the rings. Though I feel like, and maybe I'm just nitpicking, but I feel like you could have, with the technology now, you could have kept it as the rings and the fingers. I think we got enough technology now that we could have made that work. But it still was cool for visually. It was still cool for what we seen. I just felt like it wasn't necessary to change that mythology of how they look. If we could have just we could have went with that. But anyway, yeah, we learned the backstory of the Mandarin, and that he is basically a man who have lived pretty much 1,000 years. He's a man who found the rings. I think it was like I can't remember. It was a cave or some type of village. He finds the 10 rings though, basically, and he used them to go on this conquest. He used them to go on this conquest of conquering kingdoms and lands, and eventually forming the actual organization known as the 10 Rings. Since he found 10 rings, that's what he decided to name them. So in his conquering and conquest, he leads this life for thousands of years. We get from the feudal eras and all that to 1996, where he sets out on a conquest to find this mystical land that he's heard of dragons and other ways of mystical martial arts and all that type of stuff. And he sets out to go into this forest where he believes is at. but the force comes alive and starts swallowing him and his people, him and his crew that's going through this forest whole. But once it seemed like a certain death was coming for him because the force ended up like knocking his car. Like it didn't swallow his car that he was in whole. It ended up like he ended up escaping it, but the force of the forest like closing in on itself and like almost swallowing them whole. Caused the car to almost propel shoot out the forest on over this cliff. But him having the wherewithal, he uses the 10 rings to blast the door open, and he slides up out of it and lands on the ground safely before sliding off the cliff and watching the car he was in with his companion in the car, falling to their death. So he eventually gets to this cave and he meets I know her name was Lai. I want to say it was Lai. Just give me one moment. I had their names pulled up right here just so I could remember the characters' names. But I think it was Lai, but then I will be wrong. No, that's the sister. Yeah, okay. Her name is Ying Lai. She's like the guardian to this village of people who, like I said, who knows about the dragons and all these mystical creatures and the mystical martial arts. He meets her and they have a fight. And while they fighting, it seems like their fighting transition from fighting to almost dancing, as they become impressed and they become impressed with each other. And throughout the fight, you could tell that they was actually not being impressed by each other. They was also falling in love with each other. So the Wei Wu and Ying, they form this relationship, and Ying gives up her job as the guardian and to leave her people to start this life with Wei Wu. And Wei Wu, he falling in love and having his eyes open to a part of him that he never thought was possible. He actually gives up the 10 rings and leaves the 10 ring organization to have this normal, mundane life with Ying and his children. He ended up having 2 children, Shang-Chi and I cannot pronounce Shang-Chi's sister's name, and I don't want to sound stupid trying to say it. You know what? We're gonna call her Azina. You're gonna call her Azina, even though that is Azina. Yeah, Azina. We're gonna call her Azina because I can't pronounce the name, but we're gonna call her Azina. Shang-Chi and Azina. We basically started seeing that their happy life is going well until I forgot what just about. Oh yeah, so the past comes back to bite Weevil in the butt, right? One of the enemies, the Iron Gang, comes after Wei Wu, after so many years of being gone from the organization. They still want revenge, so they attack. And though they put up a good fight, unfortunately, Ying suffers the consequences, and she passes on. She ended up getting killed, and Wen Wu was never really the same after losing his heart, losing the love of his life. He returns to the 10. He returns to put us on the 10 rings to hunt down the people responsible. And once he did, the leader of the Iron Gang, he gets away, but he leaves that. He eventually leaves that fate up to the sun, and he never, and then basically resumed his role as the leader of the 10 Rings in his criminal empire. So we then see a scene where Wen Wu comes to Shang-Chi and tells him that he starts training them, and you see that Xena, she's since she wasn't allowed to train with Shang-Chi, she watched and studied them and began training herself to be as, if not just as good as Shang-Chi, better. So Shang-Chi, Shang-Chi is then tasked. He's a 14-year-old kid. He's told by his father that basically I found the man who killed your mother. I order you to take him out. He's been trained to be this assassin since he was 7, and now it's up to him to kill the killer who killed his mom. Shang-Chi then goes to either carry out or not carry out this mission, and then we're transitioned to the present day. Now, adult Shang-Chi is waking up by his alarm clock, sees a postcard, from his sister, and begins to go to his job, as we've seen in the trailers, as being a valet. I think that the next scene is basically it shows him. I think we see it in the trailer too, with him doing push-ups in his house. That's the scene that we come into now, and then the very next scene is the scene we seen for one of the trailers. The first scene in that trailer where it shows that nice red car pulling up. That's the next scene that we come into, where it shows the guy pulling up, tossing Shang-Chi the keys, and him and Katie basically go on a joyride trying to go park the car. It then goes to Katie and Shang-Chi, or Sean as he's calling himself now. They're having a little dinner with their friends from high school, and they basically, you see that you're seeing in the next couple of scenes from Katie's parents and their friends. They're not too impressed with Shang-Chi or Sean, and Katie basically they basically squandering their potential by being, valets, and stuff like that. And they even do a nice little story about how Katie and Shang-Chi or Sean met, and how for the life of me I had it in my head, but then I forgot that Katie said it was a famous song that she sang to distract the idiot bullies. And they call it the art of distraction that only works on idiot bullies. That actually worked, I guess. Apparently, when she sung the song, the bullies were so distracted and all put, like, why the hell is she singing, that it allows Sean to escape, and they became best friends ever since. And during this time, you see during this time, the story, that's when they get to talk about how, they used to be on the wild side, and Katie's friend, she was in the back seat with them when they took a car for a joyride. But then she tells Katie and Sean that the reason why she's not like that anymore is because she grew up, and she mentioned how they need to grow up too, because we live in a world where half the universe could be blinked out of existence just like that. So yeah, it was basically time for them to grow up too, like she grew up. And they made fun of her for sounding like Katie's mom. And then that's where we end up seeing that, Katie's mom ended up basically grilling Sean and Katie about being valets and doing more. So on their way to work the next day, or that same day, that was the next day, because then we end up seeing that scene, and I forgot that, where they get drunk. You saw that scene, they saw them like singing and drinking and stuff. That's the scene that comes after that, because they realized after that dinner with their two friends, they could go home and get some rest of work. Or it's like, and I say it like that because that's like it's like a little running joke they got in the movie, where they said they could go do this, the responsible thing, and then they go do something stupid like they shouldn't be doing. But they end up doing that. Then they get ready to go to work. That's when we get the scene where Katie's mom is grilling both of them. And as we get to the scene with the bus. Now, we all seen this in the trailer where where the fight sequence happened on that bus. That's pretty much the next scene. This next scene, they on the bus, they talking about different stuff. and this dude notices Shang-Chi and notices this pendant, this little necklace he got on his around his neck. He starts speaking. He starts speaking in Chinese to Shang-Chi or Sean, and Shang-Chi basically, Katie's picking up that he knows this guy, even though her Chinese is not good. She realized something is going on because you're looking like you know him, and in Chinese they he's telling him like to back off, blah blah blah, and then in English he keeps saying you got the wrong guy because he's trying to maintain his cover, but the dude tries to grab the pendant. The fight breaks out, and that's when you see the guy with the sword. I think his called Razor Fist. You got the guy with the sword. You got all of them attacking, destroying the bus, and you get that basically whole sequence with the bus is split in half. Him saving the people from coming out going out the window. You got Katie asking who is he, because that scene where she's like, "Who are you?" That scene actually takes place, but still within the fight. It's not after the fight. It was still within the fight. As she realized, that was like at the start of the fight when she realized he could fight. That's when we get the scene of who are you? And then the fight continues, and then they eventually transition to Katie trying to drive the bus. And Katie is basically like this good driver. If I haven't said that already, she's like this good car driver. And she could drive pretty much anything. So after the fight, Shang-Chi basically packs his bags because he got to go save his sister. He realized they took his pendant, which means they're going after his sister next. And Katie she desperately wants to know what's going on. Why is he leaving? Who is he for real? And he begins to tell her his backstory of who he truly is. And he said, I'm sorry, it's a lot to dump on you, but I have to go rescue my sister because she's confused. She didn't even know he had a sister. She didn't even know he could fight, but then she's like, you know what? I'm your friend. I've been by you this whole time. I'm coming with you. So he's like, no, you can't, blah, blah, blah. She's like, no, I'm coming with you. You're going to tell me everything on the plane ride. So they get on the plane, and he begins to tell her the backstory, including up until when he get ready to go kill the guy that's responsible for his mother's death. But they're interrupted at that point by the stewardess, who basically tells them, it's a little comical thing about the food on the plane. Then they find out that the food they only had two choices: beef or vegetarian. And then when they ordered vegetarian, she's like, "Oh, sorry, we're out of vegetarian. It's only beef." And when they were like, she's waiting like they have a choice. She's like, "Well," Katie's like, "Well, I guess we'll have beef since that's the only thing you got." And she's like, "Okay, what about you?" He's like, "Guess I have beef too." Like, I can't order nothing else but beef. But so after this, he tells Katie that he couldn't go through with it and that he just ran away from his father and started a whole new life, blah blah blah. So we end up going to this underground. We at this underground fight club where the address that he had was leading to his sister. And that's where you see a familiar face. As we all know, my boy Abomination, who looks more like his comic book self now, with the fins and all that type of stuff. He's shown that he's further mutated since the Incredible Hulk. And he's fighting a familiar person. I won't tell you who the familiar person is, but everybody probably know by now who this familiar person is because you saw him using the Doctor Strange stuff. I won't tell you who that is, but it is a fun little scene because he has a connection, like a friendly connection with Abomination. But yeah, so then Shang-Chi is up next. He's being informed by this guy who he's like the promoter that he's up next, and he ends up having to fight somebody in the ring. That turns out to be his sister, Xena. Xena is basically I know that's not her real name, but like I said, guys, that's all I could pronounce right now. So he realized like, oh, because he was asking the dude JoJo about his sister, but he said he never heard of her, and then he ended up fighting her in the ring. And then he found out that the Underground Fight Club is actually his sister's, but that the sister never sent him that postcard like I mentioned earlier. So they realized, wait a minute, if you didn't send the postcard, then who the hell sent it? And then they realized that the power go out. She takes off because they realized it's the 10 rings. It was all a setup to get her pendant. Fight ensues. That's when the guy that we see in the trailer trains Shang-Chi, and they fighting on the outside. Bamboo and Katie, all that occurs, and then the fight is stopped because I think Shang-Chi got the better of the guy that trained him, and he was getting ready to kill him, but then he's stopped by his father, who has captured Katie and Xena, and we are taking on this whirlwind adventure to the Mandarin compound, where we are introduced to another Iron Man 3 character who is a payoff. Beans Kingsley, Trevor's Sluttery, aka the fake Mandarin. We get the payoff of that Marvel one shot and then All Hail the King, and we found that this is where he'd been since all that. He's been a prisoner of Wei Wu for impersonating him. But yeah, then we get some more payoff. We get to meet Michelle's character, Ying Na, their Shang-Chi's aunt and the sister, and a battle ensues eventually that leads to some more complicated battles. This is the point of the review, or where I won't tell you how everything went, but visually everything was stunning. I enjoyed the choreograph, the fighting. The fighting, once we get to the mystical part of it, the fighting is almost like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, with the kicking and the floating and the flying and all that type of stuff. And it's appropriate because we got Michelle from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon in this movie, so obviously. It is funny that she made a cameo. This is not her first appearance in the MCU. She made a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, playing Alita Ogord. She's supposed to be one of the members of the previous Guardians or whatever. But yeah, so the balance ensues. Somebody beats somebody, and we get like the ending. We get like them back in the States, telling their friends what they went through, and their friends not really believing. They said you expected to believe that you two people who are valet drivers went on this mystical adventure to save the world, and they're like, yeah, why would we lie to you and blah blah blah, and then they're like, because that's why how is I supposed to believe that, but then. All of a sudden, other friends like, wait a minute, they might be telling the truth because a certain portal is opening and a certain person tells Shang-Chi that they need to talk. This movie has 2 post-credit scenes, and that ending where they say they need to talk sets up the first mid-credit, and then it's a post-credit. Overall, Shang-Chi was a great movie, visually well done. Love the storytelling. 10 out of 10, big ups. I have no complaints about it. I could watch this movie again and again just because of the visual effects, and I would definitely be buying Shang-Chi. I suggest if you like Marvel and if you know more than I do, because I never really knew about Shang-Chi, but if you know about Shang-Chi, you will love this movie. It doesn't disappoint. And the fact that the end credit scene involves some Avengers Initiative like stuff, you will definitely love it. But if you enjoyed this review, then hit that button right there in the upper right corner for all of my reviews. And if you enjoyed this video so much you want to go and support this channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification button so you get notified when I drop videos. And as always, hit one of these videos for more of my amazing content. I know it's late. I will be back tomorrow with some gameplays. Peace out.